Hey, y'all, Pastor Emil here with another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is far sweeter. We started our conversations this morning early enough that it really wasn't an appropriate time for ice cream. Now we're pretty much almost there. That's how long we've been kicking around all kinds of stuff, solving the world's problems. But I do have a nice little bit left of my peanut butter, dark chocolate, Nature Valley protein bar. I'm happy to take a paid endorsement, but that was not a paid endorsement. That's just what I have. And Scott's got his sweet water.
Yeah. Yeti ice water.
At least it looks like water.
It is.
Who knows?
Yeah. I wish it is something else in a little bit.
That's why you got to bring sealed water bottles and only sealed water bottles into stadiums and things like that. Yeah, I watched a guy bring water bottles full of vodka once, and that did not end well. Anyway, not why we're here. We are here to continue through the parabolic sayings of Jesus. They're not all exactly parables. This is actually page 1609 in the Lutheran Study Bible. And there's a nice little discussion about what all of this stuff is, and, you know, that it's not just the way we often think of parables, but they're teaching things about the reign of God, about God's kingdom in interesting and creative ways. Images, metaphors, similes, allegorical stories, things like that. And we're just going through this list. We are at the light of the world and the salt of the earth. So it actually appears in all three of the synoptic gospels. That's Matthew, Mark, and Luke. We probably could have spent a lot of time talking about what that means, but if we do that now.
Next time.
Yeah. Matthew, Mark, and Luke. There is something in each of those Gospels about salt and light. We're going to start with Matthew because, well, why not? And I actually think it's the fullest version of salt and light, right?
Okay.
The other ones are kind of like they're in two different sections of the other Gospels, Mark and Luke. They don't kind of fit together the same way. And what is that? Maybe that's a question too, right? Like, how come it's not the same in each of the Gospels? Well, if it was exactly the same, why would we need four? Right? Mm-hmm. We wouldn't need four. We wouldn't have four. We would just have photocopies with a different guy's name at the top. But just like you ask a large multitude of witnesses about what happened to discern the truth, we've got a group of witnesses that have been kind of put together here that see kind of different angles and are able to help us get a clearer picture of the truth. I'm sure Jesus actually said these words. I'm sure he had similar words that he said maybe on more than one occasion. Right? I mean, if you're working with a metaphor of salt and light, you probably bring it up more than once. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, political leaders, church leaders, business leaders, if there's a common theme, you bring it up whenever you can. And it may not always flow the same way, and it may not always have the exact same impact or serve the exact same function, but generally, it probably does. So Jesus is using salt and light for a variety of reasons, I'm sure. And we're just taking a look at Matthew first, and we'll see how far we get on the rest of them. Because, man, I've already been talking a little while. So,
welcome back.
Yeah. Sorry about that. All right, so Matthew 5, 13 through 16. You got it? You want to read it?
Sure. So, okay, Matthew. Salt and Light says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven."
All right. So what jumps out at you when you hear you are the salt of the earth?
Just historically in my life, it's like you always hear, it was kind of an older saying, I guess, maybe because they learned it in church. I've heard people say, "Oh, that so-and-so person is the salt of the earth." And it's like,
Salt of the earth person.
yeah, and it's like, I didn't know what in the world that meant.
I'm not sure it even really jives with what, I mean, maybe it is.
Yeah, then as I learned this, I was like, oh, so I just related the two, thinking that that's what that meant, but
It
maybe
might,
not.
but not always. I don't know if that's exactly. Salt of the earth person is somebody who's, like a down to earth person, I guess.
Mm.
They're not detached from real life or the real world. Good person, helpful. Maybe there's some overlap there.
Yeah. So and then the other aspect, the other thing that I really knew much about is salt, right? You put it on our food for flavoring. So, but in the past it had more, before refrigeration, it had a much more useful need where you stored things in it. You stored food in it so that it stayed preserved. So that was something else.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a whole bunch of meat, you had to eat it right away or find a way to make it last. And no refrigeration, right? So what do? You put salt on it. And salt kills bacteria. It kills germs that are going to turn that meat into something that you do not want to eat. Right?
Right.
Yeah, so well, go ahead. You were going to.
No, that's it. I mean, I know there was a barrel. I think they used to keep a salt barrel, and they would stick the meat down in the barrel, and it would just be completely like encased in a barrel of salt, and they would dig it out like you would take something out of your refrigerator, I guess, in a way. And they would cook it. But
so these days, we've got a lot of people that are on salt restricted diets.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
And so salt has sort of become kind of like a bad thing. But if you've ever been forced onto a salt restricted diet, you know how miserable that is, or how miserable it can be. Salt is kind of everywhere these days. I mean, any kind of processed snack or food or something like that is just packed with it. I mean, just look at like a little can of, the canned soups. I mean, the sodium is like 40% of your daily dose. Kind of, it's like, what? Chips. One of our kids, our youngest right now, is obsessed with salt a little bit because his grandfather is on a salt restricted diet. And he found out that salt can be bad for you and all these other things, right? Related to that. So now he's looking at the back of these packages with sodium and stuff, and he got a bag of Doritos and looked at the back and was like, "Oh my goodness, look at how much salt is in here." It's like, dude, it's in everything.
Like sugar is.
Like sugar and salt. It makes things more palatable. It makes you want more of it. Right. And one of the interesting things about salt, sometimes, people will go light on salt because of all of this stuff about salt. Like you got to not overdo it with salt, basically. and they don't want it to taste too salty also, right? So you got these dual things kind of going on. Well, I don't really like a super salty tasting meal. Yeah, but you don't understand. Salt doesn't make things more salty. I mean, obviously, if you pour a gallon, like
Yeah.
a quart of whatever it is into something, yeah, you're going to taste salt and it's going to be gross. But no, like when you put salt in something, as you add salt, as long as you don't go overboard, the more salt you add, the more it actually brings out the other flavors. You can actually taste each of the different spices that are in it, the more salt you add. So if you don't have enough salt, it will taste incredibly bland because you haven't helped bring out these other flavors that are there. So salt is hugely important in that respect. It's also totally necessary for life. So sometimes if you're in the heat, you're an athlete or you're exercising a lot, we have I just got to keep drinking water.
Right.
Well, yeah, but no. If all you drink is water and you sweat a lot, I forget the exact name, I think like hypernatremia or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Your electrolytes get down,
You
and then
lose electrolytes.
and your heart won't function properly.
You start vomiting uncontrollably, and you can die very quickly, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just have water. You have to have electrolytes. You have to have sodium in your body. It is necessary for life. So salt is pretty important for preservation, for flavor. At one point, it was actually like a currency almost, like gold, except salt, because of all these things that it could do. And so it was like a way to do business, really. And your empire was a great empire if you had not thousands and thousands of tons of gold, but thousands and thousands of tons of salt. You know, or maybe I'm misremembering history class. I don't know. I feel like there were some African nations, empires like Mali, or where we learned about salt.
Mm-hmm.
So, how does that apply to God's people?
Well, if you use all of those or some of those attributes that you talked about, it's essential.
Mm-hmm.
It makes things more taste better, palatable.
Life is more flavorful. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what else. What's another attribute of it that I'm missing?
Pushing back against the decay,
There you go.
in a sense.
Preserving yourself. Yeah. Preserving.
Well, not ourselves so much as like, I was talking to somebody recently, Lutheran, actually. So this sounds kind of weird for a Lutheran to be saying this stuff. He was talking about a professor, actually, who said, having Christians kind of in the world, you have like a level of protection, so to speak, like by being a Christian. Like God is looking out for you. He's got his angels watching over you. It doesn't mean nothing bad ever happens. It just means like, man, it could be a lot worse. And it could be. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen, like, never say things can't get worse. Of course they can. Of course they can. Don't ever say that. And I think we take for granted just how smooth our lives are for the most part.
Yes.
But then he was talking about how this friend of mine was talking about how this professor kind of took that a step further and said, and that's actually good for the world, because as we're out in the world and we're experiencing this level of protection or guidance, that God is sort of helping us. He is therefore also sort of helping the people and the things, whatever, that are in our orbit, right? That we're part of society, and as part of society, and blessed and under the protection and guidance and blessing of God, that sort of transfers also to the people around. There's not like a Bible verse necessarily that totally lays that out explicitly, but I think salt of the earth, right? That's this preservation. The salt is fighting back against the world is in decay. Sin is a decaying force in the world. Things are breaking down. It's why, like chapel today, it gets harder and harder every year, no matter how good a shape I'm in. Because jumping around and dancing, your ligaments and tendons and cartilage and joints, they're just experiencing decay because the world is contaminated with this, like a bacteria that's in meat that wants to grow and feed on the meat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's this bacteria in every one of our cells that, our cells reproduce. Like, you should live forever. Your cells just keep reproducing.
Yeah.
They keep making themselves. Why don't they live forever? Because there's a decay that breaks down that process of reproduction, where it doesn't reproduce as cleanly as it did before, right? Every year, every decade just gets less and less well replicated. And then all of a sudden you just fall apart and die. Sorry to be a downer, but
Yeah.
but that's what's happening in the whole world. The whole universe is experiencing this decay, this movement toward chaos and disorder. That's what entropy is if you're a science nerd, right? They add something to these fancy equations, these thermodynamic equations measuring all kinds of things going on in a given system. They have to add this thing called entropy to make the equations work right, because the world is moving further and further into chaos and disorder every day that passes. Just imagine if there wasn't salt in the universe. Not literal salt, but people. God's people pushing back, resisting that decay. The decay that took, Adam and Eve from Eden, the blessedness and perfection of Eden, to where, 5 chapters later, God's like, oh crap, I got to start over. Like, this is awful.
Didn't take long. Huh?
Think about that level of decay, how quickly it just went to hell in a handbasket. And then he starts over with Noah. But things still go south, right? You got 5 chapters later. Actually, so it's Genesis 3 where you get the fall, and then 6 is where Noah kind of picks up. 6 to 9, I think, is that story. Noah's, the flood and everything. And then before you know it, you get to chapter 11, and God's like, oh man, they all know the same language. We got to end this. And God adds to the chaos. And just like, that's how bad it is. Like, when they work together, it just all goes to hell faster,
Mm-hmm.
So having Christians in the world who have what's the right way to say this? I don't know, the transformational power, the sanctifying power of the Holy Spirit at work in them.
That keeps us course correcting, right? As soon as we start going off.
Yeah,
Well, maybe not as soon as we start going off, but at some point we realize, whoa, let's pull this back a little bit here.
Yeah. There's a level of, it doesn't mean Christians are perfect or even good, right? I mean, Jesus is pretty clear. The Bible's pretty clear that no one's good except God. But God working in and through us does good in a way that helps fight back against the decay and chaos. And so that's our role. And what does that look like? Well, he's going to lay that out. In fact, this comes right after the Beatitudes, so he kind of shares some things there that say this is what it's like to be salt. In fact, it's it's the very first thing after the last Beatitude. You know, you got blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. And then he says, you are the salt of the earth. Right? And then he goes into a couple more chapters of all these things. Right? He's like, I'm not abolishing the law. I'm fulfilling the law. And you should be striving to be perfect, right? Don't relax one of these commandments and teach others to do the same. You'll be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Anyone who does these things and teaches them will be called great. Unless your righteousness exceeds that of the Pharisees, the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Right? So he's laying out a pretty high bar. I think the righteousness is ultimately the righteousness that's only given to us through Jesus, which far exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees. So through faith, we have that righteousness gifted to us. But then we are striving for what comes next. Like it's anger. It's not just murder. Oh, you didn't kill anybody? Great. You're just perfect. No, you're not. If you're angry, strive to not be so angry. Not even just angry, but whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says you fool will be liable to the hell of fire. Right? Like, don't go around calling people names. That's the same thing. And then if you're offering your gift at the altar, remember your brother has something against you. Leave your gift there and go. First be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Oh, my goodness. We got a lot of work ahead of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just adultery, but lust. That's the step before adultery, right? Divorce, oaths, retaliation, loving your enemies, giving to the needy, not just giving to the needy for the sake of getting people to pat you on the back, but don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Praying and forgiving others in your prayers, fasting, not looking all grumpy because I'm fasting. Don't lay up treasure in heaven. Don't lay up treasure on earth where moth and rust destroy, but lay up treasure in heaven. Don't be anxious, judging others, right? Take the log out of your own eye before you reach for the speck. So all these things follow, and they are, I think, some way of describing what it means to be salt, what it means to be an agent of, an anti-decaying agent, right?
So it says, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? So all of these good things, like salt is the, I guess, a representative of the good things.
Mm.
But if you lose that, how will you ever restore it?
Well, it's sort of like
It'll just be trampled under people's feet.
if salt becomes useless, it's we're no good for anybody. You may as well just throw it out. It's also sort of like an absurdity because like how is salt not salt?
Yeah.
So I think in a sense, like we talked earlier, as I was mentioning, sort of this conversation I had with a friend, we are the salt, like there, because God has said so and made it so, and yet at the same time, there is a responsibility as salt to be salt. Yeah, I think sometimes we try too hard to wiggle out of any kind of human responsibility as Lutherans. So it's like, oh, grace, grace, grace. God does it all. Yeah. And now get to work.
Go be salty.
Yeah, go be. Oh, yeah. We joke around in my house, Daddy's a little salty.
That's a whole nother meaning
That's a
going on.
completely different meaning. Yes. Yeah, we are salt and we are called to be salt, and we have a role, we have a responsibility to take action to be who we are, to live into our calling, not because it gets us into heaven, right? As many people mistakenly believe. We were talking about one instance earlier. Our president thinking he's getting himself into heaven, perhaps jokingly. I don't know, whatever.
But maybe aiding other people getting themselves into heaven, right? If you're spreading the gospel.
Yeah.
And
So being salt in that sense, right? There was another.
So should we be baptized in salty water? Just don't go that far unless you're living at the beach.
I guess. I mean, you can take all of these things too far. All of them. Like you don't want to push every metaphor to its ultimate. I don't know, but
I know Cajuns use a lot of salt in when they're boiling crawfish. So.
Oh yeah, big time. Well, and how do you get all those other flavors out? You got to have salt to help bring out the different spices and things that go into those boils that make the crawfish and the shrimp taste so good. A little spicy. It's the spice of life, the joy of life, the not just the preservation of things or pushing back against decay, but spreading the good news, repent and believe the good news, right? So it's not meant that we just are the salt and we have this role, but the part of that role is actually incorporating a broader and broader spectrum of people who are salt and light in the world.
And Matthew that wrote this, wasn't he the tax collector?
Mm-hmm. Levi.
So when he was, supposedly, is this, correct me if I'm wrong or off, but like each of the Gospels is written from we talked about that, different perspective, but also each of the people that wrote had a different livelihood which gave a different perspective, right? So here he was a tax collector. So maybe he looked at salt. You talked about how salt was like more prominent in in this version of the gospel in Book of Matthew.
Well, it's just kind of pieced together a little bit.
And the other ones are, maybe because he's being a tax collector, he's seeing the salt as something of value. Mm. His focus was, he had a lot of his life was focused on money or something, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and one of the parables we've already kind of talked about, the priceless treasure, a pearl of great price, a man who finds treasure in a field and then sells everything he has, buys the field, buries the treasure in the field, and then buys the field, sells all he has, buys the field so that he can have this priceless treasure. Yeah, I mean, we're the salt of the earth, so we're precious and valuable to God and to the world, the new heavens and the new earth, the new creation that we're looking forward to. Yeah, I think that could be part of it. And when he calls Matthew, he's at his tax booth. He says, "Follow me." He's probably heard some of this, um, and seen it at work, because he throws a party, and all these people that shouldn't be associating with a Jewish rabbi basically are all in one place, and Jesus goes to the party, and there's grumbling. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" This is Matthew 9:11. Actually, kind of starts at verse 9 of chapter 9, goes through 13. But when Jesus heard it, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." And so maybe that gets in that preservation aspect, like going where the decay is most prominent, or uh, the people that need it. People that need it the most. That's where the salt goes. I don't know. Does that make sense? It's kind of maybe a reach.
You can't, like you said, you can't push it all out that far, maybe always, but
The preachers will make anything work if necessary. So, yeah. We got light, too. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So this actually I thought of this just as I started reading the light thing. It goes back to the salt, but I think it also helps with light. If you think of salt as sort of an anti-decay agent, and light as sort of an anti-darkness agent, you can see how, like, there's this image of sort of like a conflict or a butting up against the opposite. Maybe in line with what we talked about Sunday, disturbing the peace. You think I came to bring peace? No, not peace. Division. I came to bring division. I came with to baptize with fire, and I wish it was kindled already. Jesus is saying these hard things. And if you're salt, you are not welcome by those little bacteria that want to eat up your meat. Right? Like, you're literally, the salt bursts the cells that, the little things that want to grow on the meat. This is why, gargle with salt water. You don't feel good. You feel like a sore throat. You got something going on there. You gargle with salt water. Why? I mean, salt explodes the cells. This osmosis thing, it goes through the cell membranes, and it's like a natural. I didn't spend a lot of time looking into that before, but I think that's kind of how it works. I know I've gargled with salt water a lot if I ever have a sore throat or something. I think it goes after those germs. Helps you fight back against something that could be developing, right? They have these saline spray. You spray up your nose with saline spray. It's got salt in it. You get it up in your sinuses, and it helps go after the germs that are in there. Generally speaking, just lubricating and clearing it out. But I think it also kind of kills some of the things in there. It's not an instantaneous thing, but down here I have a lot of sinus infections. So I've got a number of things I do on a regular basis to try to prevent them from really, taking hold, because they can really take hold. And light is the same way. I mean, did I talk about this on Sunday a little bit briefly? Like, there's the doors in our sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
There are these doors in the back, or really the front, I guess. It's sort of a back way in. You can come directly from the outside into.
It's the back of the front.
It's the back of the front, yeah. And it's like these little dark hallways. There's lights in the hallways, but I mean, we don't keep them on all the time. Or I know I go around and shut them off because dad mode, like, why have the lights on? you know. But then if you come in from outside, it's really dark because it can get really bright on that side of the building. So you come in that contrast, right? But the same way, if you're in there and it's dark and you go out, the light is just like, oh, get away from me. I can't, And your eyes, the pupils, right? I mean, they contract to let in less light because you can't see all of that light. So darkness likes darkness, doesn't like light. And
you can become accustomed to the darkness too. So
you can become accustomed to the darkness. That's right. And then the light, again, when it shines, if it shines intensely enough, I mean, you are blind.
There is a difference. You definitely, if you're in the darkness and you become accustomed to the darkness, it's hard to tell the degrees of darkness, I guess. But you put on a light, and that's definitely different.
Yeah.
So you can see the difference, and you can see the things that you weren't seeing when it was dark.
You can see all those little bugs crawl back into their little holes.
Mm-hmm.
The mice, the rats, or nutria down here, they get in houses down here.
Not too much, no.
Do they like the dark?
No.
I don't really know too much about these nutria things.
No, they go around the daylight as well. So
do they? All right. Yeah. So if you're the light, I mean, why would you turn on a light though? You don't turn on a light to cover the light. That's sort of the point that he makes. Like, so Jesus has given us, he's made us salt. He's made us light in and through his death, his resurrection, faith and trust in his finished work. And so now we go out into this world as salt and light. But you wouldn't take away that flavoring, even if you could, which, it's kind of an impossibility. And you wouldn't cover up a lamp. You would make sure that it spreads its light as far as it can go. Put it up on something high, right? A city on a hill. Sometimes we're trying to cover it up, right? We're like disturbing the peace.
mm-hmm.
We're so busy trying to keep everybody happy and make everything look pretty and not disturb anyone or anything and keep our lives nice and smooth and neat and clean and all that, uncomplicated. That's like covering up a light.
What's the point? Why light the light, right?
Exactly. Makes no sense. You may as well not turn it on in the first place. Right? Like if we turn on the lights, but we cover those things with, like a blackout kind of cloth or whatever, that would be stupid. Just hand Cleco the money. Just hand the electric company the money, right? Just, here you go. I mean, that's what you should do. Which, I mean, it's equally as stupid.
Right.
Because that is what you're doing in effect. So, but yeah, shining a light. helps people see reality as it is. And I think we don't really see reality as it is as much as we like to think we do. We're constantly, I don't know what the right way to say it is, but the darkness is definitely having its way with us. Someone is trying to cover up the lights in a variety of ways.
Yeah, if you're used to the dark and somebody is like at night, right? Or early in the morning, it hasn't become light yet, and you're sleeping, and you kind of wake up and you look at things like, if somebody just flips the light on,
Like,
yeah. So people are used to the dark. They're gonna repel from the light. They could repel from the light, I guess, too. So, but I don't know if that's what this is getting to. Is when you think about it on the hill, you think about it as where did you just hike to?
Oh, Great Point Lighthouse in Nantucket.
A lighthouse. It's something you see and you focus on. You trying to get yourself out of the darkness.
Yeah.
Or
if you're in darkness,
crashing
you want to
into
find
the rocks.
a spot where you can you fix your gaze on, your attention, your focus.
All a good lighthouse would do is if you lit it up and threw a big cover over it.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't really help. The lighthouse, so it guides your way, right? I mean, you're not necessarily heading exactly for it, because then you crash too. But the light gives you a way to say, okay, so that means I am this far away from all these other things, and I need to keep it on this side of me and, go around into this way. And I think they even had some sort of, like, not a code, but there was some sort of system for knowing, like, okay, we're approaching this area, and we know that this particular lighthouse has a light that reaches this far, and we know that the bottom of the water where we are, then we got to stay this far away, because if we're not, then we're going to hit something. So, like, there's some sort of communication, I think, that happened. But anyway, yeah, it's
It can also make you like walk down the beach like 5 miles in the blazing sun.
Yeah,
if you can get there.
So
then back, because you have gotten yourself all the way out there.
You got to go back, yeah. So if you didn't hear on Sunday, I shared the story of our trip this summer. We just got back from a trip to the Northeast, Nantucket, which NOLA's Nantucket Rescue, by the way. We've got...
Good segue there.
Yeah, look at that. Me hawking books still. NOLA's Nantucket Rescue is the latest. I don't have a copy here because, just speaking of decay and brokenness, and things just don't work the way they're supposed to. We were supposed to have those books. We had planned or hoped to have the books much earlier. We could bring them with us to Nantucket. That didn't happen. That's okay, though, because I think it turned out well. But, and I don't have my phone either. I was going to hold up a picture to the camera, show you the front cover. So we went to Nantucket, and there's this one lighthouse. It's called Great Point Lighthouse. It's one we hadn't been to, and why haven't we been to it? Well, because it's 5 miles on the beach to get to it. And you can drive it if you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and only a 4-wheel drive vehicle. So not an all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, which I think the difference is just each wheel has its own, it's independently powered. All-wheel drive is it powers all of them sort of at the same time, whereas 4-wheel drive kind of has a way to provide the power where it's necessary independently. Anyway, we don't have an all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive vehicle, and renting one there is pretty expensive, or certainly challenging to get one. There's a limited supply. So this year we said we're just going to walk. So we walked 5 miles in the sand and then 5 miles back. And I'm pretty proud of myself for having completed that. And every one of all of the family. I mean, not everyone made it the full way, but they did. They were close enough and they did enough. It's like, this is impressive. So I was thoroughly impressed with everyone. But a lighthouse, yes. We are salt and light. We are pointing people the way, pointing the way for people. And how do we do that? Well, we are that in a sense. You know, wherever you go, you are, in a sense, directing people. Sometimes it's more than they can handle. Like you've said a couple of times now, right? Turn on that light in a dark room. People run from that. So sometimes your light's just a little too bright. And I don't know that we should like tone it down. I don't ever really want to tone it down because I think that's like what he's saying. You don't put a light under a basket, right? You shine the light. But just be aware that sometimes your light is going to be a little too bright for somebody, and they're going to have to get away from it and then get accustomed to a lower level of light until they can be in the presence of a very bright light. You know, people don't come to Jesus instantly. I mean, there's a path, usually a process that unfolds, which you may be completely unaware of. And if you see somebody change and confess Christ in an instant, just know that there's more to that story than you realize. I mean, it does happen where, like, you're in your experience, you're encountering this person, all of a sudden, oh, man, yeah, I believe in Jesus. Wow, that happened fast. Yeah, there's more to that story. Somebody's been praying for him. Something's been working on them. Someone's been working on him. So, yeah. But then the rest of the way is, you know, sort of what does it mean to be salt and light? It's these chapters. It's the Sermon on the Mount. It's us just being really flavorful and a great preservative. And, you know, like if you get to the root of murder, which is anger, that is how you're pushing back against the decay and chaos and whatever of the world. Not by saying, oh, look, I haven't killed anybody, but I sure would love to. Because then that means those seeds are going to sprout eventually. The seeds of murder will sprout one day. Lust. Oh, man, yeah, I haven't had adultery with anyone. Oh, man, but I sure would want to. That's going to lead to something. And
a lot of suffering.
yeah. And then retaliation and all this other kind of stuff. You know, if you let your enemies entice you into that game of hating anyone, right? People are far more complex than we give them credit for. The person you hate the most in the world right now is not hated as much as you do hate them by everyone. Certainly not God. And they don't only bring evil into the world. There's something beneficial that God somehow, in his grace and mercy, God is bringing something good into the world through them, right? And so he's like, hey, turn the other cheek. Pray for those who persecute you. Love your enemies. Don't just love people that love you back, right? That is how the world works. The world can actually make itself look kind of good on the surface and be decaying and crumbling underneath. So these are sort of the ways to do that. And people who give to the needy and pat themselves on the back, that's not doing nearly as much good as you think. You know, that's like, look at me. Not look at the light of the world, Jesus, through whom he shines, through us, right? He shines then through us. And that's how we are the light of the world. But Jesus is the light of the world. And if we're saying, oh, look at me, look at what I'm doing. No, 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 no. That ain't the light of the world. That's participating in the decay and chaos and dysfunction of this world. Look at the light of the world. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. So, I don't know. Have we beaten this to death? Is this making sense?
It made me think of some Yoda quotes.
Yoda. Bring them out.
All right. Here's two. Where's that other one? I lost it. Well, here's the you're talking about the anger thing.
Yeah.
So fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And where's the one about the luminous beings? Oh, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are luminous beings in that we are the light of the world. But
I mean, Yoda had a little salt in him, I guess.
yeah, maybe. Do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah, that was on the list.
I use that one with my kids. It's helpful, but
something about failure or something too. You must unlearn what you have learned.
That's actually what Jesus is doing with the Sermon on the Mount. You've heard that it was said, but I say to you. I mean, that's the format of this. It's an unlearning. Which, this is why
it's in the culture.
Like our politics are so messy, is you've got so much that's right here, black and white. This is what Jesus is saying we are supposed to be doing, to be salt and light. And yet, at the same time, I mean, it's not that there's only one side that has biblical norms in it. But yeah, that when we were talking earlier, and I'm thinking about salt and light, I'm really, I don't know what it is that has me drawn into our cultural, societal moment, but that's one thing that I have been, I guess, struggling with, is how do you be salt and light where everybody hates each other?
Mm-hmm.
The church is essentially divided, I think, by American government, by our nation, and our pursuit of, on both sides, a form of Christian nationalism that excludes the other. How do you be salt and light in that? I don't know. I think first step is just don't participate in it or participate in as little as possible. But maybe this is a good, because holy cow, I mean, what gets the most clicks? Look at how Trump was a fool. Look at how AOC was a fool, or Biden or Harris or whatever. I mean, like, that's what gets our attention. That's our flesh being enticed. It is not light. It is not salt. It is participating in the decay. Our righteousness is certainly not exceeding the scribes and Pharisees, because there's an awful lot of self-righteousness going around. Mm-hmm. And a smug self-righteousness among everybody who's pretty sure that they've got it right. That's why we have a problem. It's not because of Donald Trump. It's not because of the media. It's because we have a smug self-righteousness that does not exceed the scribes and the Pharisees. Divorce, oaths, maybe the oaths are something that applies, right? Don't take an oath at all, either by heaven or by earth or by Jerusalem. Just say yes or no. All right. Anything else comes from evil. Right. And we got people promising us the moon always, forever. That's not godly. So, and then retaliation. I mean, that's exactly what politics is. It's I almost feel like Christianity is simply not compatible with politics, and yet politics is necessary.
Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
Yeah, so that's the role, right? There is a role for government, and it is incompatible with the life of a Christian in a sense. Now, of course, then you get into all kinds of messy stuff like, well, do we not want Christians in government? Well, sort of, or are we just going to be Amish? No, I'm not sure that's right either, because how are you salt and light then?
Right.
How are you in the mix here? But there is something about politics that is like, and it comes out in that retaliation and that love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Like in this theater, we as human beings, we are drawn into the way the world works, which is basically power dynamics. And so we live in a world with consequences. Like I literally teach my kids things that, I teach them those things because that's how the world works. That's not necessarily something that Jesus has commanded.
Right.
Right? Like, because if I say to my kids, oh, it's okay, I love you no matter what, doesn't matter what you do, that's a recipe for disaster. Right? No boundaries, no consequences, nothing. And yet at the same time, within that, I have to make it clear that while I'm meting out consequences, I do still love them. And almost that the consequences are in fact a reflection of my love, which is biblical. Something's happening on there. Snowflakes on our screen there. Somebody may have done something on
It was fireworks going off.
Facebook. Anyway, yeah. It's a mess. It's a mess. How do you love your enemies? How do you not retaliate in a world that, and in a structure of government as it is, that can't survive without kind of winners and losers? And so pray with me. Give me your insights out there, the world. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe they cut us off on Facebook. Who knows? It's time to go anyway.
Okay.
So be salt and light. Sermon on the Mount. You be salt and light. You pray about being salt and light, about not participating in the decay of society and the universe, shining the light of Jesus, not being offended when the light blinds people and, causes them to run back to their holes, And openarmslidell.org. You're always welcome to make a contribution there. I think it's a Give Now button somewhere on that front page. You can also purchase a publication. The Tales of Nola now includes a third book, which I will have on the shelf here at some point. And Open Arms, Connecting People to Jesus, a book about reaching the lost, the everyday average Joe, Jane, Christian trying to reach people where they live, work, and play. Had a book signing for this Saturday, but we moved it to October because we just got back and it's a mess. So,
And it's hot. Will it be inside or out?
Hot. It's inside, I think. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, lugging things.
But the book is hot.
The book is hot. Yes, very, very hot. So,
like they said, if you don't want to buy it now, You gonna wait and buy it later, or go ahead and buy one now, and then also buy one later?
I've never heard that, but hey, if it gets somebody to buy a second copy of something, sure, whatever. I'm good with that. All right, y'all, hang in there. Great to be with you. Taste and see that the Lord is salty.
There is salt in ice cream, so
There is salt in ice cream. Oh, we should have done a whole big thing on that. It's too late now. All right. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet and salty. But Jesus is sweeter. Later, y'all.